let me turn on the chat button so that our dozens of viewers can see it and say good morning and welcome to B Cube Sunday morning. This is Bob Brown, and I am totally, and I mean totally blessed this morning with guests. One of the most forgiving people in the world, Patty Wells. And hey, from my perspective, and David D. Levine. And we also, oh my God, my brain, Dale Ivan Smith. I'm sorry. I was like trying not to let my brain go.
It's right.
You're going to see.
It's right here. There we go.
Yeah. Oh, he's even got a name tag. Yeah. So we have Facebook users saying good morning to us. And so we can, you guys, every now and then I will go over and say, and hit a show button, and that will give you a chance to see this and say, oh yeah, we'll respond. Dozens. Actually, I have no idea how many watch because I don't get the numbers from other places. But I will say this: B Cubed Press is having a fun day because something that has never happened before happened. We went out there and we put together a book called Post-Roe Alternatives, Fighting Back. 49 stories about people writing about choice, the Roe v. Wade decision being overturned, Hobbes, and a very emotional subject that it's all about taking away liberties from Americans, diminishing our rights. And so the people wrote us a lot of good things. We've had Adam Troy Castro wrote a 10,000 word story that I'm just going to say is rock. Jim Wright, Jane Yolen came in for us. Elizabeth Ann Scarborough. Lots of great writers. Karen Anderson, Deb Godfrey. The numbers are awesome. And they wrote it, and so we uploaded it onto Amazon, and they tell you in 3 days. An hour and a half later, it was live. And that, for me, that said somebody sitting there going through the process, and they said, holy crap, we can't wait to get this kind of a book out there. America needs to be talking and thinking and responding to that decision. America needs to be demanding the restoration of rights. And so they got it out there, and we are happy. So, but we aren't having a show to talk about B Cube Press and their joy of getting a new book out, even though I am shamelessly plugging it. And I will continue to do so for the next 3 weeks. But we have got Patty Wells. So tell me, we're talking about Orycon, and you brought these two fine folks with you. So why don't you give them a full-blown introduction and tell us why you're here?
Okay, so we're here because Orycon got hit by the pandemic, just like, I don't know, everybody else on Earth. And we did a live Orycon last year, and it just warped. But we didn't want to have a year without some kind of an Orycon. So some of us are putting together a virtual convention, which takes a few of the constraints off. We can do the program we want, invited the guests that we wanted. We're just going to have a fun time and on a show. And speaking of the guests we wanted, we started with two of our local authors that we really highlight because they are, I guess they're our favorite people. I don't know how else to put it. David D. Levine has been a fan and a writer and was going over his awards before we went live. starting with Writers of the Future, having won a Hugo, a Nebula, and several other awards. I was sitting in the audience the night the night David won his first Hugo, because I'm sure more, and started screaming my head off so that 2 or 3 people turned around and went, "That's Patty. She doesn't scream her head off." Oh, yes, she does. So we're very proud to have David join us. Dale Ivan Smith is also someone who's star fan and one of my favorite professions, because I've been one, a librarian, and moved in writing. And what impresses me about Dale is the variety of materials he writes. He has done things in mystery. He has worked around the science fiction and fantasy field. He's all over the place and incredibly prolific. And both of them are just really interesting to listen to.
Okay. I think, guys, she's
would you
waiting.
like me to talk about the other 2 guests while we're here?
So who are your other guests that you got coming in?
Okay. You're cutting out on me. Okay. The other constraint we don't have is needing to fly someone here from England. So our music guest of honor is Lauren, who is both a folk and filk, and who won 2 awards in 2021. Fantastic, and will be joined for a very active music track. And Lynn Robin, who is a guest of honor for our very popular station that we do, that does craft and other sorts of programming. Lindsay has worked as a digital 3D artist on The Mandalorian, Pinocchio, and I'm reading from this, other things she's not allowed to talk about. We are super excited to have Lindsay here as well.
It's actually tons of fun to have things you can't talk about.
I'm sure we will all try and make her talk about things that she can't talk about, but she won't talk about them. It looks like we lost.
She could, but then she'd have to kill us. Yes, we've lost our host.
Having to kill us with virtual people strikes me as really kind of terrifying and hard. David, since we lost our host, why don't you tell them the rest of the awards you've won?
Okay. Well, actually, I can show you. I can show you the awards that I've won because I'm home. Okay. So let's see. So starting. Well, I've got them set up. I've got them set up with the biggest ones in the middle. But so okay. So this is my first one. These are my first Hugo nominations. I was nominated for a Hugo for short story and for the Campbell Award. This is my OSFCI Lifetime Achievement Award. The Drabblecast Best of the Year Award is the eyeball in a goblet. This is the Hugo Award, which I won for short story for Tick, Tick, Tick in 2006. This is the Endeavor Award, Orycon's own award for the best book by a Pacific Northwest novelist. That award went on hiatus for a couple of years during the pandemic, but we're bringing it back now. This is the James White Award, which is a short story contest in honor of writer James White, who's one of my personal favorites. I was very honored to win that one. This is a Nebula. It doesn't look like a Nebula trophy, but it actually is. This is the Norton Award for a YA science fiction or fantasy YA book, and it is. When I won it, it was considered not a Nebula, but a couple of years later, they retroactively said that the Norton Award and the Bradbury Award for screenwriting are now considered Nebula Awards. So it's not shaped the same as the other Nebulas, but now this is actually a Nebula Award. This is the Phobos Award. for it was a short story contest. I won that very early in my career. Writers of the Future actually is not represented here because all I got was a certificate, and that is hanging someplace else. This is my trilogy, Arabella of Mars, in a nice box set, which a friend of mine made the box for. And this is not an Arabella Ashby action figure, but I like to think that it is. And then all the other things that I have down in the end here are just souvenirs and memorabilia, not awards. So there are. Yeah, the Writers of the Future Award, they gave me this huge certificate. It's like 15 inches. It's like 15 by 28 inches. So I don't have any room for it downstairs. And there's probably one or two other things that I've forgotten about. So I have been very fortunate to be I've been very fortunate to be honored by my peers and my readers, and I would strive to keep this up. It's been difficult. It was extremely difficult for me to write during the pandemic, and I came back and I finished a novel and actually managed to sell that novel. And it is now, unfortunately, the publisher of the small press to which I sold my most recent novel, the one that I finished finished during the pandemic. He just had a very serious spine incident, and is now awaiting surgery. So the whole press is on hold right now. So that book was supposed to come out in March of next year. I anticipate a delay of a couple of months, but I wish that's Shahid Mahmood of Arc Manor Press, and he is, and we're all pulling for him. I'm sure he will be fine, but it may be a bit of a long journey. And then I do have a story coming out in FNSF sometime early next year, and I had one recently in Clark's World. So I am producing, albeit extremely slowly.
Well, we're going to concentrate on David for a few minutes because he has to leave for another podcast or meeting at 9:30. So we're not going to neglect you, Dale. We'll get to you a little bit later.
Okay.
So I always try and be polite.
Yes,
People
thank
that we know that doesn't happen actually very often, but I'm trying today. David, one of the things I liked about programming you for this convention is that you gave me a list of standalone items that you can do where you really get into some nuts and bolts.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to admit that Anne, who I'm working with on program, and I read through the list and went, he says he'll do 2. How the heck do we pick out 2 out of this wonderful list?
Mm.
However, we did. And I wonder if you would talk about those items a little bit, outlining a story in an hour and planetology for writers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So outlining a story in an hour is actually something that I stole from one of my instructors at Clarion West. I can see her face. She was one of the founders of the Tiptree Award, and her name is, Through Time and Space with Maxwell Merriweather. She did Out on Blue 6. I'm sorry. Okay. Anyway, a fine writer, a fine teacher. And I stole this idea from her. Well, okay. She gave it. This is Pat Murphy. Thank you, Facebook user. Yes, Pat Murphy. One of my instructors. One of my instructors at Clarion West. Somebody I am very honored to call a friend today. She gave us this talk about how to outline a novel in an hour, as a kind of a side quest when we were at Clarion, because Clarion West is focused on short stories. But she gave those of us who were interested, which I think was everybody, an hour to just talk about how to quickly turn an idea into an outline. And so it's just a list of questions, and it works wonderfully. So I don't know where she got it, but I got it from her. And all I do is I walk the people who attend the workshop through this process. It's really quite straightforward. and it works great. It's just a series of about 20 questions that starts off with who is this story about, and works up from there. The other one that I'm doing, Planetology for Writers, I'm fascinated by planets. I've spent my entire life living on a planet, and I find planets very interesting. And so planetology, if you've ever read a book by James Michener, you know that he always starts off talking about the geology of the place he's writing about. Kind of geology is destiny. And I think geology is destiny, if you scale it up to a much larger scale. Planetology is destiny. Everything about your life is dictated by the planet that you live on. And if the planet were a little bit different, your life would be much harder or probably impossible. There's an awful lot of ways that you can change a planet to make it impossible to live on. But this doesn't stop it from being interesting for story purposes. And so there are many aspects of the things that make a planet that can result in interesting stories, depending on whether you're writing a story that takes place on the planet or around the planet or on the way to the planet, what have you. There's a lot of cool stuff about planetology that I've learned in my studies, and in college. Actually, I did take a course in planetology in college, and I still use that textbook. So there's a lot of things about the planet that your story takes place on that can influence the plot and characters and suggest interesting things to happen. One thing that keeps happening to me is I will literally pick a place or a time just because it sounds interesting. I recently, the story that's coming out in FNSF early next year, I had mentioned in passing, this is about an existing character, and I mentioned passing that the two characters had met on Titan. I just threw that out. And so when I went to write the story of how they met, I started research on Titan, and it's fascinating. Titan is like the second most interesting planet in the solar system. It is, it's the only planet where apart from the fact that it's too cold and there's no oxygen, you could walk around on the surface without a spacesuit. And it's free hydrocarbons falling from the sky, and so it's ripe for exploitation. Not to mention the fact that there's a possibility that it could have some form of life. So anyway, doing research on a planet, on a real planet, or making up a new planet is a great way of building up ideas for a story and a world. And so I'll be talking about that for an hour.
Have you done any research on the super Earths that people are looking at now and going, would this be the place that we might be able to move to?
Not specifically, but I do know enough about it to tell you that no, we are not moving to a super Earth anytime soon, because for one thing, it's too far away, and for another thing, it's not. They call it a super Earth, but that doesn't mean that it's better than Earth in some way from our perspective. It just means it's bigger. So these so-called super Earths, most of the planets that we have found are probably gas giants. Not everyone is a gas giant, but there are gas giants like Jupiter and Saturn are extremely plentiful in the galaxy, and they're easy to spot because they're big. So these so-called super Earths are easy to spot because they're big, but unlike Jupiter and Saturn, which are mostly gas, they're mostly rock and ice, like Earth is. That's why they call them super Earths. But it wouldn't be particularly super to live on one because the gravity is going to be tremendous. 5, 8, 10 gravities. You would definitely not be able to walk around. But don't worry, they won't get you. They're too far away. We do not have the technology to actually reach any of these exoplanets that we're discovering. It would be lovely if we could, but current physics indicates that this is going to be impossible, which doesn't stop us from writing stories about it.
No, it doesn't. And they're some of my favorite stories. So there we are. Tell us a little bit. We're going to do an evening event that circles around, excuse me. If I'd known I was going to end up being the interviewer, I would have ingested a lot more liquid caffeine and my voice would be better. Tell us a little bit about Mad Scientists, because both you and Dale are going to be on that item.
Well, this is an item that I did at a panel years ago, that I did at a convention years ago, and I always wanted to do it again. So, Mad Scientist Job Fair. The panelists are all playing the role of mad scientists, and the audience have come to the job fair. And so, our job is to convince you, the audience, that you want to come work for us and be a minion. I always wonder, whenever you see a movie with a mad scientist, who are these jumpsuited people? Why do they come and work? Why do they come and do this dangerous work and almost inevitably get blown up along with the volcanic island at the end of the movie? So basically, it's going to be improv, and with the people that we've got on it, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, Patty,
Excellent. So
I
show up, and whether to be a menu or not.
And if you
Yes, Bob.
show up, yes, the Mad Scientist Job Fair is going to be offered at Orycon, and if you show up, you will be dragooned. So be sure you have all of your papers in order before you come to the convention.
I think that means he wants you to make a will before you show up.
That too.
But who am I to discourage anyone from showing up and being a minion? I certainly intend to show up, because
Yeah.
when you work in a program like this, you program the stuff you actually want to see, right?
Yes, it's do it from mad science. Okay, I would
Yeah,
like
Bob
to.
back.
Okay, I only have a few minutes left myself. I'm sorry, but I would like to hear from Dale anyway.
Cool.
Well, I'm looking
Dale, do
forward
you
to
want
the
to?
Go ahead, Patty.
No, you just go ahead. What would you
Well,
like
it's
to
a
say?
real. I am looking forward to participating in Orycon. I first attended way back in November 1981 when I was still in college, and I was awestruck at this convention, which I heard about for a couple of years, but finally was able to see. And so, missed last year, but other than that, have attended every single year, and was involved in the Writers' Workshop for a number of years. Also helped with programming. Green room back in the 90s, hospitality. And then for probably the last 8 or 9 years have been able to attend as a panelist, and I really appreciated that. I feel like it's a way of paying forward as much as anything else. And it's really cool being kind of a co-GOH with David, who I've known for a very long time. I was talking to someone about this. I had to leave the Portland Science Fiction Society in 1984 because I'd taken a break from college and then was going back. And David was coming in about that time, if my memory served. So we kind of saw each other in passing there for a bit. And then I exited because I was involved in history studies for a number of years. But we connected over the course of our convention career into the 90s, and then even worked out at the same gym together at one point. And it's really cool seeing his career blossom, and mine has taken a different path, one I'm really happy with. I started out publishing in some of the small online magazines. And in fact, my latest publication is a story collection I put together called Rules Concerning Earthlight. And my first story sale was in late 2009 to a magazine called 10 Flash Quarterly that Casey Ball put together. If I remember correctly, I think David had a story in one of her issues, but a lot of people that I know did. Anyways,
yeah,
Casey,
I never did, but I was very much aware,
okay.
very much aware of her as a presence as a presence in the community.
Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't remember for sure. Anyways, I had several stories sold to her, which are in this collection, and we became really good friends, ended up collaborating together. And two of our collaborations appeared in Perihelion Science Fiction, and one of them was nominated for a Pushcart Prize for Small Press Award by the editor, mind you. So it's a long form nomination, not the committee doing it, but it was still an honor. And then the final story in the collection is one that we had written first, actually, which is a novella. Very tough sale for a couple of writers that weren't well known. So we didn't sell it, but I was rereading it when I was putting the collection together and decided it really deserved to be put out there. So other than that, I've had my 5 novel Empowered series, which is complete now. And I've got a urban fantasy called Gremlin Night, and several appearances in anthologies. And I'm now working on a library mystery set in the 1980s, which I've wanted to write for a long time. And it's called A Shush Before Dying. And I just got a new cover for it because I was not sure I wanted to go with the original cover. I'm a self-published author, so I have that power and that responsibility, as I like to say. So other than that, I worked for Multnomah County Library for many years. My joke about that was that when I was a kid, the last grade school I went to, Chehalem here in Lower Beaverton, was brand new at the time, and they had modular classrooms where you could slide the room, walls back and forth. And that gave someone who didn't realize in 5th grade that he was actually developing myopia. So he couldn't see the chalkboard. So I got very bored in math class and snuck off several times to the library to read. And of course, I eventually got busted. And then the math teacher told my parents, and they had me checked, and I've been wearing glasses ever since. But of course, having stolen off to the library, where did I wind up after college but the library? It's a natural transition for me. So I worked there for quite a number of years and loved the job, just everything about it. And I didn't think, the funny thing was when I was hired, I thought I'd be there for just a few years until I made it as a writer, and air quotes, and it ended up being over 30 years. And it was a terrific job. I wouldn't have changed anything. I retired in December, just about 2 weeks before the news of a new virus in Wuhan surfaced in the media. I'm just still, that was the timeline branch right there, apparently. So,
You did it.
I did it. Yep, it was mine. Yeah.
There is a question in chat that looks like a question for writers. Which one is harder to sell, short stories, article, novella, or does it depend on the publishing house?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, if you're asking which one's harder to sell, then presumably you do not have a publishing house yet, because you're still trying to sell it. You don't have a publishing house until you've sold something. The process of selling short stories, articles, novellas, and novels, they're all different. You sell a novella the same way you do a short story, but there's very few places that will take a novella. Novella is basically like twice or 3 times as long as a short story. So there's very few places that sell them, and of the ones that do publish novellas, they only like you might have a print magazine might have 1 novella and 4 or 5 short stories in an issue. So there are many fewer novella slots out there. So you have to be really good in order to sell one. And then also and the novella line, the novella landscape has changed dramatically with the advent of Tor.com, which is a respected publisher that specializes in novellas. Up until that point, a novella was like an extremely long short story, very difficult to sell. Now, with Tor.com having broken open the market, there's a lot more places that will buy a novella, and a lot more readers who will read them. So it's easier to sell a novella now than it used to be, but it's still easier to sell a short story. And an article is a whole separate thing, because when you're pitching an article, you send out the idea. You go to a specific publisher and you say, hey, I have this idea for a nonfiction article. Would you be interested in it? And then if they say yes, then you write it. Whereas with a short story, you write it and then you look for a publisher.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting perspective there, David, because I know I've been keeping quiet for a long time, Patty. The rare for me.
It's okay. I'll make fun of you for it.
Hey, you know these guys well, and you know what you want them to get out. But in answer to that concept there, here at BQ Press, we very seldom will publish novellas, only have done one. And but we do a lot of the articles and essays in our work. So if you're in that mode and the open call fits, we look forward to seeing it. But I did have a question for you, Patty, on this Orycon virtual. Is it still working on the same website?
There's an OR-E-Con2, right? It will be, and we are it is, I have not mentioned the most important things about it, is that it will be a free convention. So if you get on our website, you can register for it, and that's all we ask of you. I
And if
should
you
put the
type in
website.
if you type in the chat, I will post it out to the general comments. Oh, there you
Okay, I
go.
will pin in a couple of minutes.
Well, Linda beat
It
you
will
to
take
it.
me a minute to find it out.
Linda.
Oh, Linda
Yeah,
beat me
Linda's
to
got it.
That is so good.
Mhm.
I have not used this software, so I am still a little bit
Mhm.
on the newbie side, for which I apologize. Yay, Linda!
Okay. Okay.
Hey,
Thank
it's
you.
like
But it is a free.
when
Yes.
David was trying to remember Pat Murphy's name. That happens a lot here. You guys are working, you're talking, you're trying to say, okay, who was that? Who was that?
Yeah.
And boom, it shows up over in there in the comments. So
Yes.
our
See-
listeners are wonderful people.
All of us is smarter than any of us.
Yes,
The
we need
collective.
all of
Okay.
them.
Okay, I'm terribly sorry. I'm terribly sorry for misscheduling, but I have to book. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bob, for hosting. Thank you so much, Patty, for inviting me, and thank you so much to the audience for showing up. So I hope to see you at Orycon 2 in what is it now? 2 weeks, week and a half?
It is
Soon.
November 4th through 6th.
Okay,
Wow.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Okay.
That is coming.
Okay.
See
See you
later,
then.
David, and thank you so
Bye.
much for being you.
Excellent. It's all I know how to do.
Yes,
Well, you do a damn
And
fine
you're very
job of it. Okay.
good at it.
I hope somebody is.
Okay.
I wanted to get back.
Is this
I
where
wanted
we?
to get back to Dale just a little bit, because Dale mentioned in his explaining his career a couple of things that I think that we're going to be covering in panels. Two of the things he's going to be doing are talking about research and writing, and talking about mysteries, combining mysteries and science fiction. And then he's also going to do a reading, and I wanted to start with, what are you going to be reading for us so we get a preview?
I am actually going to be reading the opening of the novella that appears in Rules Concerning Earthlight, which is the collection. The first couple of scenes. The novella is called Silver City. It takes place in 1901 in Tonopah, Nevada. A medicine show that has actual magic in it arrives in town and ends up discovering there's an evil in the town that they have to deal with. So several of the other stories in the collection I've read at conventions before, so I thought I would pick something I hadn't done. So I'm excited to share the first couple scenes of that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Can you tell a little bit about what you would want to talk about in a research panel? Because in my experience, reading pretty much anything, you need to get the research right, or people read your stories and go, "That's stupid."
The thing I want to emphasize is the resources you have available to you. I will certainly talk, and there'll be several panelists, right? Is my understanding, or is it just me?
Mm-hmm. No, it's
Yeah.
several panelists.
Yeah, well, we'll certainly touch on the importance of, like you said very well, that getting the facts right. But the other thing is, I want to allow people to be aware of some of the tools that are available to them. And being a library person, the modern library is a great gateway to all kinds of research tools to help them get those details right. Everything from medical details to historical details to scientific details, etc. In fact, I gave a talk for Willamette Writers in May, their coast chapter, which is headquartered in Newport on the Oregon coast, about utilizing the library. how you can make it work for you as a writer in terms of research, as well as how you can reach out to libraries as an author to maybe have them have your books. But that's a whole other topic. But yeah, so that's my idea behind that, is I want to really look at the library tools that are available, and some of the things you can look at. Also, just some off the cuff. My mystery writing, the series is set in the 1980s, and it's set in a fictional neighborhood here in Portland. But I wanted to get some, even though it's a cozy mystery, I wanted to get some grounding in police procedure and whatnot. So I was able to find some books that were published in the late 80s and early 90s that gave me a pretty good view of what people were actually using then, and as opposed to in 2022. Before we had all the social media, cell phones, the computerized technology that we have today. So
I think I read that series of books, one on gory murders on the bus, and people would get up and move away from me.
Yeah, I have them up here on my shelf, several of them. So there's one of them right there. And the other book I'm really happy with is called Be Your Own Detective, which is perfect for an amateur sleuth, written by a private detective and a defense attorney. And one of the people it's dedicated to is Senator Joe Biden. So for his help in law and with legal issues. So that was very cool. So anyways, that's my plan for that. And then the other panel, remind me, I know you just mentioned it.
Well, you have other panels, but there are a couple of them. One is self-publishing in 2022.
Right.
And you were one of our best self-published authors, or one of our most successful, I think.
Well, I've been fortunate in my timing. Now I'm sort of going back to square one because I've moved into mystery, and that's a completely different genre. While there are science fiction and fantasy fans that read mystery, there really aren't mystery readers who then go on to read science fiction, fantasy, any kind of number. So it's sort of like I'm starting over. But I gave a talk in person at the Coast chapter last month on self-publishing. And yeah, it's a huge topic. And my goal would be just to kind of give people a sense of some of the things that are involved in just getting your book ready and just the platforms that are available. I mean, the third thing is how to reach readers, and that's the same challenge that publishers face. So for me, that revolves around electronic newsletter, building an electronic newsletter and having a direct connection to readers. So we don't have, like with traditionally published authors, their publisher works with booksellers, and the booksellers then in turn connect with readers. Whereas as a self-published author, I'm going directly to the reader. So, because I am my own publisher. So.
Okay. Thank you, Dale.
Sure. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Mad Scientist Job Fair. My contribution, no doubt, will involve something to do with Fezes. And someone, Cheryl, I think it was in the chat, complimented me on this Fez. This is from Fezorama, and it's the Cheeky Teacup Fez. So
Fezorama? There's really a Fezorama?
Fezorama, wow. Yeah. Jason Rogers is a very talented artist and tailor who lives in California, who founded this probably 15 years ago now. And I have quite a large number of Fezes. And I just received a new one, which is a mystery Fez, but I thought I'd put on the teacup Fez for Bob's talk this morning. So
cool. Well, we've talked a lot about writing, and the thing I want to put in, because mostly I like to hear writers talk, or I wouldn't be a science fiction fan, right? But there are other things we're doing for the virtual Orycon, because what we want to do is hit of the topics we love. And I wanted to highlight just 2 or 3 things that are different, just to give you an idea. One of them is great and wonderful Betty Bigelow, who also will be on the Mad Scientist Job Fair. Betty is doing a props demonstration, building demonstration for us on the Klingon bathless, which I hope I'm pronouncing. My Klingon isn't very good. She has been doing all sorts of reading, all sorts of prop building. She's also going to do some reading of her favorite. We wanted to get to something, as much as we love David and Dale, we also wanted to get to some of the Spanish activities. So we're looking forward to her contributions. Another area we have some interest in is gaming. And Sam Winkler, who is one of the lead writers at Gearbox Games, has recently moved to Portland and is going to be interviewed. He wrote on Borderlands 2, was the lead writer on Borderlands 3, and on Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, which is his most recent game. And he is going to talk about game writing. And in fact, what he's doing, he said, what sort of questions should I answer? And I said, I'm not really sure. And he said, you know what? I've got a few thousand Twitter followers. I'll go on my account and ask them to submit questions. So he will be answered those, and will be interviewed by someone who knows his work very well. Shauna Ruppert is going to join us and do readings from both of her series of works. And let's make sure. And the other person who's coming from out of community is a woman named Elise Schumann, who, if you're a Portlander, you may be familiar with the Rose City Book Pub. It's over in Northeast Portland. Elise went through and went from being a Latin teacher to fulfilling what are two generally fanish dreams. She started a pub and she started a bookstore in it. So for those of you who want to drink your beer and peruse books and buy many of them, it's a great place, and she's going to talk about that. And she has been running a trivia quiz for 2 years during the pandemic, which was the way she kept the pub open during the pandemic, was that people would take part in the trivia quiz and contribute at the end. And she has agreed to do a trivia contest for us. So there's going to be quite a variety of things, a little bit of costuming, some science. We're going to talk about the Webb telescope and what happens if they find something really interesting like alien life. And we're still working on this, but what we're hoping to do is at the Dublin Worldcon, 2 scientists did a very spirited debate about whether there is other intelligent life in the universe. And they're trying to work out a time to recreate that debate and get in and go out at hammer and tongs again. So we're trying to have just a little bit of something for everybody. That's the more general program. For those of you who've attended Orycon, we do Creation Station every year, which is one of the most popular things we do. They will be online doing craft and various other presentations and highlighting their guest of honor. And Orycon always has a spirited music program. There is a full schedule of concerts that will go on well after the rest of the convention is over on Sunday afternoon, and will go on into Sunday evening. So we have quite a lot of different things we would like to have you come and share with us.
So what's the platforms you're going to be using to, if a person wants to sign up and go attend this, is there any unique hardware, software they need?
It's not real unique. It's mostly Zoom. We have some presenters who are not as wild about Zoom as they could be, and we get that. So there will be some items, particularly from Creation Station, that are rich. but that's pretty much it. We're trying to keep it as basic as possible. And what we do say to everybody is, for heaven's sakes, check that you've updated your Zoom before you start, because I know I've certainly been caught by that.
Yeah, I use Zoom a lot, and but it can get a little funky sometimes. Yeah.
It can, but it's the one, well, in talking about this, I've worked on about 3 virtual conventions now. In talking about it, it's still the one that the most people have used.
I think it's a good one. I mean, I use this program for doing the podcast, but I would call it a nightmare if I tried to use this to host a virtual convention. It would, for example, as I think you discovered earlier, or David did, that it doesn't like Safari. And if you've got people trying to attend on iPhones, that could be difficult. But I'm just totally excited, Patty, that you're doing what I consider saving of Orycon, because I've always considered, not always, but in the last dozen or so years, considered Orycon my home convention, where I went because it was a great place to be, wonderful people, and well done in every case. So you doing this as a bridge to next year's in-person convention, is that decided yet, that there will be a next year in-person convention?
We would certainly like there to be, and on Sunday there are a couple of panels scheduled on both why it's fun to work on conventions and how you go about working with our board. The basic problem for us is just that, I love Portland. I've lived in Portland a long time. If you're in the high-tech industry, you can be really broke in Portland, and because of the common pandemic and the brokenness, everybody was just real tired. So we're going to see, but only hope to have a physical Orycon next year. And what we really want to talk about with people is, what form should that take? Did we like the old Orycons? How do we move forward as conventions move forward? I like to tell people that I've attended all of the Orycons. My best friend says I started when I was 5, and that's why she's my best friend. But the thing is that over the years, the convention has changed quite a bit, and what we're looking for is new ideas and new input on how to make it more relevant and not wear people out so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, yeah, it is. The world is changing. It is a amazing thing, and how to keep yourself current. Make it an event where people will actually get up out of their living room, drive, and stay in a hotel room to walk downstairs and hear Harry Turtle, or whomever your guests are talking, to hear a David Levine speak, to see a man's Fez in person, or the Fez de jour.
See it in person next year.
That's right.
Is that a cat?
That is a cat. That is a 16-year-old cat who is largely deaf. He's a sweetie, but he doesn't know how loud he is. So timing is everything. So yeah.
Oh, hey.
Oh, and I see a note from Linda, who is, by the way, it's not me doing this. It is a collection of us, and Linda Pilcher is actually the chair of it. I'm just working on one section of program, and am the one that doesn't mind getting on to things like this. But Creation Station, this is their 20th anniversary of presenting their own unique spin on fandom. at Orycon, and we are so proud of them because every year when I've worked on the convention, I think I've gotten the most questions about Creation Station. And Ellen, who runs it, is fantastic.
Tell us more about Creation Station. What does it do?
It's hard because it does everything. It does various craft presentations. It does some presentations on things like tarot. It really, with Lindsay coming in as a guest, there are going to be presentations on a lot on her art and 3D digital art. It's all over the place, but when people ask me, I tend to go, it's a little more the craft that's not writing.
So is it focused on hands-on, or is it display or demonstration?
And to which the answer is yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a person could go there and, I mean, you will be, if your interest is, hey, how do you do this physically? You might find an answer there for something you're looking for. If
you might. And it obviously can be a bit more hands-on at a physical convention, but they have already run their event virtually. And they do such a variety of things. It's hard to catch. It's hard for me to put out, but it's an interesting variety of materials, and you can watch, you can participate, but you can always learn something.
And learning, lifelong learning, that is one of the greatest phrases I think ever invented, that says if you can walk away from a convention or an event or a panel when you're 70 years old and feel like you've learned something that's useful to you, then it's a success to do. And as a librarian there, Dale, I mean, you've got to love to see the light come on when somebody discovers something that is so cool, because it's an amazing number of librarians are authors. So
yeah, love of books, love of words. One of the many things that was enjoyable about being a librarian was connecting someone to their next favorite book, which wouldn't necessarily be the same as mine or Patty's or whatnot, or yours, Bob. But that was always good. We called that reader's advisory in library land, and that was connecting someone with a book they might like, either from an author that was like an author they read or somebody else. So yeah, that was a great privilege. Someone mentioned in the chat, wanted to know if I was a fan of Matt Smith's Doctor Who, and I am. It's not why I have the fezzes, but I thought it was cool that he was wearing fezzes. I had a friend that actually was a fez wearer, started out with a collection of Shriner's fezzes, and then did a couple of the Fezzorama fezzes, and that got me hooked. So,
well, guys, I know that it's what am I looking at? Okay, we're down to 6 minutes. So this is where I would ask Patty, is there anything that you haven't said that you believe is critical to somebody who's thinking of attending the Orycon virtual?
I say that you can, the schedule, there's a preliminary schedule up now on the website. There will be more and more detail. I would say register and show up. You're bound to find something that interests you, between science, between costuming, between lots of writing, and what we read the program to. As Linda says, what Creation Station does is encourages people to find their own creativity. We're going to talk about gaming writing. We're going to about other writing. We're going to talk about costuming. There's something there for everybody who's a science fiction fan, so dip your toes in. And if you decide you'd like to work on a convention, it's fun.
Is there going to be any online gaming?
Not much, no. We run GameStorm every year, and it is a big deal, so that we will stick to the other stuff for the virtual con.
Well, what about you, Dale? Last chance to plug this, that, the other, or tell why you're excited about this.
Well, I'm really excited to be a part of Orycon. Like I said, I've been involved for many years as a fan and then more recently as a panelist. And I think a virtual convention is a great way to reach out to people, not just during a pandemic, but people who might have a harder time coming to a convention. Maybe there's mobility issues, maybe there's some health issues, economic issues, like Patty said. So I'm excited to be a part of that. It's just fun to meet people too. And I'm looking forward to my reading. I always enjoy giving readings on it. I haven't given a reading in person in several years because of the pandemic. So I've done a virtual one at NorwestCon, but I'm looking forward to doing it again.
Well, then I would like to thank you both. And then I would like to remind the folks that are watching here, because we've got some very exciting stuff coming up here on B-Cube Sunday morning in the next 2 weeks, as well as a supplemental. As you may have heard me mention that after 49 years of Roe, the Supreme Court decided to let their religion take over our democracy, and took away the Roe, the right to choice of American women out of America. And so we have to celebrate that. I know I'm not very subtle, am I, Patty? We have
good. Just lobbying it, because I've been in for a very long time. You go.
Yeah. Well, and it's not just me going. And to celebrate that, we have 49 different pieces in this book, 348 pages at 1.31 pounds, all the fun statistics to celebrate each of those 49 years. And the book is dedicated to Kansas, because Kansas showed us that when Americans themselves are given the right to make a decision, they will make the right one. When we turn it over to whoever can win a red state primary, we get a completely different answer. So we dedicated this one to the citizens of Kansas, who said by a 58-42 decision, we want choice in our red state. And I think if referendums were held across the country in the various red states, we would find out that America is a lot more ready to respect the choices of its citizens than it is to respect the choices of its churches. So we're having next week, every night, we're going to be inviting 1 or 2, 3 of the guests, the writers that have contributed to this fantastic book, to sit down with one of the editors and have a chat, because the writers of this book are phenomenal people. And then next Sunday, we will be bringing on the editorial team, and they will be telling us, what made this book special for them. And then the Sunday after that is our traditional end of the month, last Sunday. And that is where David Gerald and Jim Wright come out and share with us their opinions on the world. Now, I know it's odd to think that either one of those two, especially David Gerald, would have an opinion, but he does. And while he's not in the book, they're being joined by Adam Troy Castro as he, I'm not sure, is 10,000 words a novella or I don't have the Hugo criteria in front of me, but they're going to have a nice major discussion on this topic with one of the great writers in the book. Now, I know it's going to make a lot of people really funny, 3 old white men talking about this, but I would remind you, the Roe was it's not just about men. It's not just about women. It's about choice. It's about liberty. It's about allies, and it's about America. And so we're going to be there talking about it. And 10,000 words is a novelette. We'll have to remember that when Hugo time rolls around. But thank you, Dale Ivan, and thank you, Patty Wells. Okay, Dale Ivan Smith. I know, get it right. But thank you both for coming on. And Orycon, I've always loved this convention. I've loved participating in it, and I look forward to the virtual. And I thank you both for making it happen. So take care, guys.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And